It's showtime here on the East Coast, and we are 4 days away from the NFL draft and one of the most pivotal Niners drafts that comes to mind. This is probably the most pivotal draft of the Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch era that probably since they got hired in 2017. Um, and they missed miserably on those first round picks in 2017. They got Reuben Foster to open up their regime, and they got Solomon Thomas in their first round. And they didn't get fired, and they haven't gotten fired for now. Is it year 9? So they've really got a hit. As we've said before, John Lynch, if he doesn't come away with a couple of major starters in this draft, it's not only going to send the 49ers into mediocrity. I would already argue that has started, but the old players that they drafted years ago that they successfully hit on, the players that they traded for in Christian McCaffrey that were tremendous trades, are now getting into their 30s. And it is time to replace those players. If they do not, they haven't really had much success in the last couple of drafts. And then obviously they made the Trey Lance trade, one of the worst trades in NFL history years ago that sent them back even further. And so now those veterans who are all-time great players have been masking kind of the issue for years with this Niners team. And that is they cannot draft. They haven't been able to replace talent. If they been able to draft well, we wouldn't have seen Trent Williams, what they're going through with him, because they would have been able to draft a replacement tackle. We wouldn't have seen Brandon Ayuk getting that massive extension, one of the worst extensions in Niners history, because, we would have been able to draft Brandon Ayuk's replacement had we been confident in how we can draft. But the whole reason why we gave Brandon Ayuk that extension and we're having this quarrel with Trent Williams is because we are not confident. Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, the front office is not confident in the way the Niners can draft. So I think with my help today, this is going to be the last live show I do until the NFL draft. I'll probably, around the 49ers pick at 27, I'll probably be going live to kind of cover that pick. But this is going to be the last live show before the draft on Thursday. And so I came up with a list of 10 players, guys that I think if we draft a couple of these guys, that this is going to be a successful draft, because I am that confident that these guys are just ballers and we're going to get the most out of them. I kind of went most of the prospects. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of the top 10 are going to be all guys that, probably first round picks that we could potentially get in the first round. Then we have another guy who I'd say third, fourth round pick, a couple third or fourth round picks, and then another guy who I think is going to be like two guys that are going to be like second round picks. So we're going to be hovering around that middle range. And primarily the guys in the first round that I would just love the Niners to seeing them get. Before we get into that, though, I'm going to hover it over you guys a little bit, because I want to talk about really the 49ers mistakes that they cannot make in this year's draft. So one thing I want to see him do, well-tested players that have proven production in college. And this is especially going to be true with the running back position. A couple years ago, the Niners drafted a guy by the name of Isaac Guerendo. And this guy he had been a backup most of his college career. And he went into the draft with, not a lot of production, but he ran a 4.3. And off of the fact that he had a really good combine workout, the Niners basically, and probably a good meeting with the Niners basically drafted him because he had a very good workout, which is fair. But I want to see the Niners maybe never do that this draft. Yeah, they can have a good combine workout, but you've got to do your due diligence on their film and know and vet these guys, know what you're looking at. Now, one thing I will say that I commend the Niners for doing is I'm looking at these top 30 visits, guys, and I'm loving the guys we brought in. I mean, Max, we're really doing our due diligence for every single guy. Now, maybe we're just trying to throw people off the scent of who our guy really is at pick number 27, but we've got Max Ionature, top 30 visit, Malachi Lawrence, Caleb Lomu, Chris McClellan, love the defensive tackle out of Missouri, who's probably a 3rd or 4th round pick. Caden Proctor, Michael Trigg, Denzel Boston, Omar Cooper. So these are all guys that I would love us to get in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th round. And I think the Niners are doing their due diligence this year because their jobs depend on it. So that's one thing. Don't get guys based off of the measurables that we've seen in the past. Another thing I want to see them do is best player available in the later rounds. So here's the thing. You're drafting for need, and I could see why the Niners are going to be drafting for need in the 1st round. Like Trent Williams doesn't come back. You draft a tackle, maybe slide him to guard, and maybe he's not the best player available. Now, I'm going to talk about a guy who I think is the best player available that could slip to 27. A couple guys like that. But, I mean, best player available in round 1, if you have to go need, great. But this guy that I'm going to talk about later in the show is truly going to be best player available because it's not even the biggest need on our team. But especially in the later rounds, if you see a linebacker in round 4 and you're like, okay, we really need to draft a guard, but there's this linebacker that we are infatuated with that, yeah, maybe he's not going to start right away, which I think is already happening with Nick Martin. I still have hope for him. I think Nick Martin, maybe they're developing him just like they did with Dre Greenlaw. But if there's a linebacker or say a corner that it's like, okay, this guy is clearly number 1 on our board, but we're going to go need instead. Don't do that. So best player available in later rounds, because that's really where you're going to get your steals of the draft. Oh, this player fell here. We're going to draft him. Yes, he's a receiver, but let's get another one. Or yes, he's a defensive tackle. Yes, we've already drafted, let's say, a defensive end in the 1st round, but there's another defensive end that we really like, which is kind of the segue into my next mistake that the Niners cannot make. Gain picks. So trade down in one of your upper, whether it be the 1st round, 2nd round, trade down in the later rounds. No reaches. Gain picks and by trading down, because currently the Niners only have 6 picks. Double up at position. So let's say you draft a defensive end in the 1st round. Draft another one in the 4th round, because we've seen in drafts previous, the Niners have drafted a 1st round pick, or like last year, do what you did last year, draft the 1st round pick, but then later on in the draft, maybe draft a guy at the same position. And I could especially see the Niners doing that because they have a gaping hole at defensive end. So draft a guy like Malachi Lawrence 1st round, and then draft another defensive end that you really like, that you think could be a sleeper in the 4th round. Malachi Lawrence doesn't pan out, but the other guy does. And now you're maybe not getting fired because of that one sole reason. So double up at certain positions, especially defensive end, because I think you can afford to double up at that position. You don't have a lot of depth there. And then my last kind of strategy for the Niners, find the George Kittle and CMC replacement. Make it your mission. Scout third, fourth, fifth round running backs, tight ends. If you have to go first round, if by the grace of God, Kenyon Sadiq falls to you, draft him. I think the Niners, those two players have been the blue chip core of your team for the last couple of years. But this is the first year where George Kittle's going to be out. CMC isn't the same player he used to be. This is the first year where, as a Niners fan, I'm starting to see this is the year where you have to transition to other players. You have to start to develop other players behind those guys. So find your George Kittle and CMC replacement in this draft. Like I said, first, second, third, fourth round pick. I don't care who it is, but you have to draft a tight end and a running back that you're confident, hey, we can develop this guy for 1 or 2 years. He'll play a role in the offense, and then he's going to become a star. You have to start to transition to those younger players instead of, well, here we're going into another year and CMC and George Kittle when he comes back are just all-time great and they're going to carry us to another playoff game. No, I think this is the year where you're going to start to say, we're a year away. We might already, this is the year that they might fall off completely, but this is going to be the year where you need a draft before it's too late. So those are kind of my keys. Now let's get into the top 10 players. I'm going to start from number 10, and then I'm going to get to the first round guys that I think are the most interesting. So at number 10, I've got Jayshon Barham. Let me get to his notes really quickly. He's the linebacker / defensive end out of Michigan. He's projected in the 4th round. Again, guys, this is going to be a shorter stream. I'm going to try to do 30 minutes because the library closes at 11, and that is currently where I am. But yes, Jayshon Barham, linebacker / defensive end at Michigan. His calling card is run defense. He gets a bit stuck in the bit stuck in the pass game, which is why he needs a little bit of help with his coverage. But he has great closing speed. Once he reads something or filling gaps, let's say in the run game, filling gaps and reading where the run is going and then reading, reacting, and boom, plugging that hole. He's great at that. He runs a 4.6, and that's really impressive for a linebacker who is 240 pounds. Like, that's elite athleticism right there. Then you can move him to defensive end, and he can set the edge on early downs because he's just that strong of a player. He is the true sense of a tweener. He's a guy who, if he's developed right, he can play defensive end, but then he can also drop back and play outside linebacker, which I think if the Niners were to draft this guy, let's say 4th, 5th round, let's say they trade down in the 4th round to the early 5th round. Let's say they draft this guy. This is like the true replacement for D. Winters. This is who I think they envision D. Winters to be, is a guy who he's like a positionless player. Put him at linebacker. He's pretty good in coverage, great in the run, but then you can also put him at defensive end. He's going to get you 4 to 5 sacks per season. And I mean, Raheem Morris is known for developing positionless players, but this is a guy who D. Winters never became that player because D. Winters just wasn't smart enough to read where the run was going, wasn't smart enough to read a play action pass, and just was a little bit slow in reading different coverages, concepts, and was just terrible at reading, like was just getting burned consistently. So, and D. Winters is on the last year of his deal. So they're looking for a replacement at that outside linebacker position. And like I said, if Jayshon Barham, linebacker for Michigan, is developed right, he's a positionless player who can also do a little bit in the pass game, who is really good already against the run. And yeah, almost is that Dre Greenlaw replacement. Once Dre Greenlaw, if he can stay healthy this year, that's great. But I wouldn't mind the Niners drafting and adding another linebacker to this roster, just because there is way, way too many questions with the linebackers we have. Dre Greenlaw hasn't stayed healthy since the Super Bowl season. Wasn't healthy last year with the Broncos. Wasn't healthy the year before when he was recovering from that Achilles injury. D. Winters is, like I said already, I already talked about him, but D. Winters, Luke Gifford, good special teams guy. Don't really want him to start. So yeah, they need definitely, this position group is almost set, but it's like, it's so mediocre. The only real guy, proven guy that you have is Fred Warner, but he's coming back from an injury. So this position group is definitely not set. Would love them to go Jayshon Barham. I'm going to try to speed it up a little bit, which is unfortunate because he was my bottom guy. He's the guy I'm going to spend the least amount of time on, but let's try to speed this one up. Febechi Nwewu, the guard out of Oklahoma. You're talking about Niners, when they're looking for offensive linemen, they're looking for character guys. The 2025 season was where he put it all together, really. He started every game, earning second-team All-SEC honors from the league's coaches. He dropped his weight, and here's the thing. This is where I speak to character. He dropped his weight from 339 to 326 at guard, just to become a little bit more mobile, a little bit more agile. So by all accounts from his teammates and staff, played the best football of his career. The Sooners converted all 31 of their red zone opportunities into points when Nwewu was anchoring the interior. He allowed just 2 pressures off of 374 pass blocking snaps during a dominant and midseason stretch. And he even slid to center for the final 2 games. This is a guy who could plug in at left guard, one of the biggest needs on our team, and could slide to center when you're tired of Jake Brendel being Jake Brendel. And I've already said, this isn't a 4th round guy. This is more like a 3rd round guy. I wouldn't even mind if we reached for him at 58, but this is like a 3rd round guy who I've already said, I think Niners are going to stay put at pick number 27. They're going to trade back from that 2nd round pick into the early parts of the 3rd round. And I want to see them, maybe you swap next year's 4th for another 3rd round pick. You trade back down into the early parts of round 3 with that pick number 58. You pick up another early to late 3rd round pick, and maybe you have to do some pick swaps. But I want the Niners to have 2 3rd round picks, one of them to pick Febechi Nwewu. Oklahoma honored him with the Don Key Award, the program's highest annual distinction, and he was named a finalist for the Bullsworth Trophy, given to the nation's top player who began his career as a walk-on. So began his career as a walk-on. This is a guy who's had to work his ass off to get to where he is now. He's smart. If you watch the tape, he reads stunts, twists. He's committed, like I said already, to his craft. The reasons I've just spent the last minute or two completely, speaking highly of this player. So you might be asking, why are the reasons he will drop? And the measurables. I mean, he's not super mobile. He's not super strong at the point of attack. He's a guy who he's just going to wear you down over the course of a drive, but he's not extremely, the reason why he's not super strong at the point of attack is because he's not physically overwhelming if you look at the measurables. So that's number 9 for me. Febechi Nwewu, guard from Oklahoma, 3rd round guy. Number 8, Nicholas. Actually, do we want to go number 8 with Nicholas Singleton? Yes. Nicholas Singleton, running back from Penn State. So assuming the 49ers have the power back in Jordan James, more of a red zone, ground and pound kind of guy in Jordan James, you need the McCaffrey replacement. This is the McCaffrey replacement. Singleton, explosive as all hell. I know a lot of people were saying he lost his explosiveness from 2024 to 2025. He still house called and had multiple house calls in 2025 for Penn State. 0 fumbles in 2025. He broke his foot. He had some injury issues due to the fact that he got a lot of work in 2024, couldn't handle that workload. I see him in this Niners system as kind of, at first, a thunder and lightning type running back. He's probably, with his injuries and with how hard, this guy's just a hard runner. He reminds me of how, previous running backs for the Niners have been. just really hard runner, aggressive runner, one cut and explosive off of that one cut. Will read the whole one cut runner and then boom, he's gone. Explosive as all hell running back. And he's also really good in the pass game, which is why I kind of attribute him to the next explosive Niners running back that they could have that could replace Christian McCaffrey. Now, like I said, I don't see him being a full workload back right away, but that's okay. We still have Jordan James. We still have Christian McCaffrey. But like I said, you could fill the role of a thunder and lightning type thing. He's a guy now this is too much of a comp. Like, what was I going to say? The Lions running back, Jahmyr Gibbs. It's too much of comp to Jahmyr Gibbs because Jahmyr Gibbs is elite. But this is a guy who he could fill a theoretical Jahmyr Gibbs type role. You have a power back like Jordan James, and then you have this guy who's going to get you 10 carries per game, but every single carry is going to go for 5 to 10 yards, and there's going to be at least one house call in the game. So he's going to have a chance because if you take care of your body and you don't fumble the ball, Kyle Shanahan's going to reward you. You're a professional. You don't fumble the ball. You do everything right. Kyle's going to reward you. And Singleton is that guy. So that's number 8. Number 7, Antonio Williams. I'm going to try to go a little faster. Antonio Williams, wide receiver from Clemson. Why he would play right away. He doesn't fit. He doesn't need to refine his game. He's a great route runner. The Niners, they need receivers that can come in and that they can compete right away. Kyle Shanahan, I've talked about this in the past. He looks for wide receivers who he doesn't really have to develop. They already have a fully developed route tree. This is why I put Antonio Williams over a guy like Ted Hurst, because Antonio Williams just has the full route tree. He's a great route runner, and he's got sneaky athleticism. I mean, you're looking at the measurables. He's 6 foot. That's one calling card. He doesn't have a ton of he doesn't have a big body. I mean, he's 6 foot, 187, which is not ideal, but he's got a 40 time of a 4.4. That's 80th percentile. He's got, for anyone saying that this is a true slot receiver, which is all I've seen in the scouting report, I don't think so. This is a guy who is super shifty, and he's got a great shuttle time. He's got a great 10-yard split. He's got a great vertical. He's got a great broad jump. And so he's got an okay 3-cone drill. This is a guy who's sneaky athleticism, super shifty. He's just small, but he's really tough. And so, and this is why I don't get why this guy is so hated on, and why this is going to be a guy who is an end of round 2 to round 3 steal, because he had more production than Omar Cooper in college. But Omar Cooper is now being mocked in the first round. I love Omar Cooper, and he's going to be on this list. But, Williams had 900 yards in college, something that Omar Cooper, I don't even think, eclipsed. 11 touchdowns in 2024, 900 yards, 75 catches. And a punt returner, which is also going to fit the Niners scheme. They need a punt returner. Great straight line speed, like I said. Great route technician. Gadget player, which at first, the Niners still need a gadget player, because at first Niners fans were thinking Ricky Pearsall's that guy, but Ricky Pearsall doesn't stay healthy to be a gadget player. The Niners still need a gadget wide receiver, and that's Antonio Williams, if he can stay healthy. So that's number 7 for me. Number 6, Max Ihenacho. Now, reason why he's not higher on this list is because I don't think the Niners have the balls to necessarily coach him up. And also, I don't even if they did, I don't think he's going to be here at 27, but I had to throw him on the list just in case he is. And he did go on a top 30 visit with the Niners. I mean, we all know, anyone who's watching has already kind of watched Max Ihenacho, which is why I'm not going to go too far into him, but elite power, mobile, technique needs a bit of work, but what stands this guy, if today, Caleb Lomu were on the board and Max Ihenacher were on the board at 27, who would I pick? I would pick Max Ihenacher for one thing, intangibles. Max Ihenacher, if we can develop this guy's got the traits to be a Hall of Fame left tackle. Lomu, I don't think he has the traits to ever be a Hall of Fame left tackle because his arms are just too short. He's a guy who's going to need to put on some functional mass to be elite at tackle. So there's a huge chance, though, that he gets snatched up in the top 15 picks. He reminds me of Darnell Wright, the Tennessee tackle a couple years ago, that when the process in February, this is why we don't have the draft in February, because when February hit, Darnell Wright was a 3rd round pick, and then everyone started watching this tape and they're like, this is a top 15 talent. That's the same thing with Max Ihenacher. And then looky Lou, freaking Darnell Wright goes top 10 to the Bears when he was at first, when the draft process started, a 3rd round pick. So I don't think he's going to make it, but I had to put him on the list because this is every single scout's dream. It's like, man, this guy's only played 4 years of football, but you talk about Trent Williams being impressive and, players' stories of Trent Williams. They don't want in the run game, when you have Trent Williams, a 300 and something pound offensive tackle running at you, you don't want to be in the middle of that freight train. Max Ihenacher is the same thing in the run game. When you have a 340 pound tackle as athletic as Max Ihenacher is, as a linebacker, you don't want to be in the middle of that, in the middle of just getting pummeled by a tackle of that size. I just realized I hadn't been putting up banners for the last couple of players, Antonio Williams, wide receiver, and Max Ihenacher. I kind of got carried away with talking, but let's get to our next player. That guy being Omar Cooper. It would be 5th on my list, correct? Yes. Omar Cooper. Everyone knows him, wide receiver, Indiana. Ideal length for a wide receiver. Multiple concentration catches in 2025. Smooth cuts, very smooth route runner, elite yak, obviously fitting the Niners system. The reason why he'll drop, because of his, I said this earlier with Antonio Williams, because of his production. But I'd say to hell with production in college. This is a guy that shows everything you want. This is a guy that's going to break out in the NFL. And yes, Indiana just didn't make him a primary wide receiver in their offense. They had Elijah Surratt. They had a great run game. That's not too much. This is another reason why it's like, are you sure he's going to be there at 27? And it's like, I saw somebody talking about, his production and knocking his production, but you don't know what Omar Cooper, the relationship with him and his quarterback is like. You don't know what the chemistry was between him and Fernando Mendoza, And so, and another reason why I'd love the Niners drafting a guy like this in round 1 is because I've said this before. There's a real chance that Mike Evans and Ricky Pearsall are both out by week 7 because electrical substation, whatever you want to freaking call it, none of the guys we have on the roster right now have proven that they can stay healthy. So why not draft an elite wide receiver who probably, he's not going to start right away. Who gives a living shit? I mean, come on. You got to get your guy that all hell breaks loose, everyone's injured. He can still be he has fresh legs. He's a rookie. He can still be plugging away while everyone's injured. So, I mean, he knows how to run a slant. Smooth slant run, or smooth slants, which is what Kyle Shanahan asked for. Multiple TDs. Red zone guy. So let me take a drink here. Dehydrated. So that's Omar Cooper. Next guy I wanted to talk about was, who was next on my list? Let's go, because I didn't really exactly put these top 10 guys in order. We still gotta, okay, let's do this guy. Joshua Josephs, the defensive end from Tennessee. Man, it's hard talking for 30 minutes straight. Don't worry. I promise next week after the draft, I'm going to try to get a guest on to react to the picks. But yeah, Joshua Josephs, defensive end, Tennessee. This is a guy. So we talked about, I'm infatuated. I think the Niners are going to go defensive end in the first round. But let's say a tackle is there that they like. Lomu, Max Ionacher. A receiver is there that they like. Omar Cooper. Then you have to resort to finding a defensive end in the second or possibly third round. We've talked Danny Denise Sutton, the defensive end from Penn State, but this is a guy that I like even more that's going to fit more of what Raheem Morris is going to want to do. I like him less than Malachi Lawrence, because he doesn't have that elite bend around the edge that you want to see out of an elite pass rusher. But what Joshua Josephs does have is that elite speed. He's got quickness to where I don't even know the amount of first step quickness that Joshua Josephs has. I don't even think he's going to be there at 58, but he's probably going to go a little bit earlier. But this is a guy who didn't have production right away coming out of college, and that's just one of the knocks on him, is he just didn't have a ton of production. But that's because he was a very situational player. And then also the early parts of his career, he spent backing up guys like James Pierce, another great draft pick, had he hadn't gotten in trouble with the law. The guys like Byron Young, who's now a great defensive end on the Rams. He forced 3 fumbles in 2025, earning a 90.5 pass rush grade. He's really good against the run for his size. But like I said, they used him as a situational pass rush because he's not an all-down guy who can take on double teams in the run game. Let's say a team were running towards him and you've got a tight end chipping him and another tackle kind of chipping him as well. He's not the guy with the length of arms. Well, he's got 34-plus inch arms. That is the 1+. But he's not the guy with the type of strength to where, he's going to take on double teams against the run. He is a pure, and he doesn't even have, I don't even know if he's going to have the capability during his career to do that. He is a pure third down rusher, which is why I think he's more of a second round guy. But he only started 12 games in his career. So yeah, he's a second round guy that you're taking a flyer on, but that's why you get somebody like him in the second round, because there are concerns. He's not a great anchor. But then there's also, he has the speed to automatically to beat out any other tackle in the NFL. Like legitimately, he could be one-on-one most of the year if Nick Bosa stays healthy. And if that's the case, he could be an 8-9 sack guy just because he has the speed to get around offensive tackles right away. He doesn't have to develop that type of his game. All right, so now we're moving into the top 3. And we're moving into the George Kittle replacement. Michael Trigg. Niners had him on a top 30 visit. I saw unreasonable hate for this guy on a couple of podcasts this week saying, I don't know who this guy's name is. Well, guess what? You haven't looked past the second round for tight end. Let me tell you a little bit about Michael Trigg, tight end from Baylor. Long arms, broke a record by testing at the combine for 34-plus inch arms, 34 and a quarter, broke the record for a tight end at the combine. Plays bigger than what he's listed, will be a great red zone target. I mean, you just saw Baylor just throwing it up to him, or just a big body with long arms, just recipe for success in the red zone. One of the bigger gripes about him is he needs to develop a little bit more of a run blocking portion to his game. I don't necessarily see him. That's something he's going to have to develop. But here's the thing. Baylor, the way they played offense, Baylor dropped back and asked him to be a slot wide receiver. They asked him to be their Jawan Jennings of their offense. Baylor didn't play a lot of blocking tight end sets. Baylor plays a lot of drop back, 5 offensive linemen, 4 wide receivers, type of offense when Michael Trigg was on the field. And so this is a guy who, he fits what Brock Purdy is trying to do really well. He would be a great contested catch. I mean, that basically was his film, over the middle, contested catch. So Jawan Jennings replacement, right? And then he has the size and the long arms to, he'll develop into a better run blocker. And frankly, I just don't think we've seen that part of his game enough because Baylor didn't play it. So Niners could go Endries in this draft at tight end, which is more of a blocking, less of a pass first guy, or they could go Trigg, the all around insane athlete that just didn't get enough work in college. Purdy's a gamer. He likes to fit it into tight windows. Trigg is that guy. So that's all I'll say about Michael Trigg. I honestly hadn't really looked into this guy a ton until today. And then I was watching his film. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't think of this guy earlier. The Niners are so smart for having him on the top 30 visit. This is a guy, he'll go in the 3rd round. And this is a guy who, this is precisely why I want the Niners to get into the 3rd round, is to pick this guy up. And if he drops you in the 4th round, you better be thanking God, because he is just that good. All right. So we've got number 2. I'm going to try to go fast. I've been saying that with every player, but I'm going to try to go a little bit faster with this guy, Malachi Lawrence. I've talked about him at length. I'm obsessed with this guy. Some people say he won't make it out of the top 20. Some people say he's a 2nd round pick. I think if you're a good scout, you'll say he's a 1st round pick. Great pass rusher, elite swim move. Great bend around the edge, which really separates him from a lot of guys, separates him from a guy like TJ Parker. 4.52 40 time, great testing, great workouts. Athleticism was off the chart. He's got great size. He plays with a great motor, 33 and 5/8 inch arms, which is 50th percentile, but he uses them. Great speed, great first step, probably one of the best first steps of anyone in this class. What else did I want to say about him? He's got better bend than Joseph's, strong anchor, and he's going to be a Raheem Morris guy. Let me change the banner. Why do I keep forgetting to do that? Malachi Lawrence. But yeah, I've already talked about him at length, but he's really, if you look at the defensive ends that Raheem Morris has drafted in the past, this is precisely what he's looking for. And personally, if we drafted him with pick number 27, that in my book would be a huge win. This is a low ceiling guy in my opinion. And he's a guy who's going to put on a couple more pounds and he's going to become a great anchor, is going to become a little bit stronger of a guy. All right. I'm not going to forget to put the banner up with this next guy, which is my number 1 guy. And I said this already earlier at the beginning of this show, which, by the way, I think this is one of my best shows that I've had in a month. But I said this, the Niners cannot reach. If by some possibility Emmanuel McNeill-Warren, safety from Toledo, drops to them at number 27, the Niners have to go and get him. The Niners can't reach on guys. And I said later rounds, you can't reach, best player available. First round, you really can't reach. Emmanuel McNeill-Warren is going to be a guy who is probably going to be passed on because a lot of other people have needs. Safety isn't a well-liked position in this year's class. There's a lot of corners that are going to go before safeties. Some people like the coverage skills that Dylan Thieneman possesses more. But let me say how the Niners are going to use this guy, okay, if they were to draft him. And I think this is Raheem Morris's wet dream. I'll say the Seahawks, them drafting Eamon Worry was the game changer that unlocked their defense. He was the dominant piece that unlocked their defense. Niners will get better value with edge in the second round, with guys like Denise Sutton or Josephs. Same with wide receiver, Antonio Williams, instead of in the first round reaching, I think, for a guy like KC Concepcion. Or, let's say they were to look at tackle. There's a good chance that Blake Miller is the best tackle on the board at 27. So had Lawrence be off the board at 27, Blake, INH or Lomu's off the board, go safety. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, if he's there, great against the run. Straight line speed is incredible. Had great production through college. He's a box safety working well in zone coverage, where he can use his straight line speed to read and react to throws by picking off, or to where he's very good against the run. Where I think he'd fit in the Niners scheme, first and second down, you put him in the box in kind of a cover 3 type situation next to Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner. And then you have, hold on, let me look up. So I have actually the zone 2 installments here. Or sorry, the different installments that you can use. So in cover 3, you're going to put him in the box as one of your kind of roaming guys in the box. And then you're going to have Mustafa as a free safety over the top. Or you're going to have Mustafa in the box and you're going to have McNeil-Warren over the top. So that's cover 3. That's against the run. Okay. Cover 2, he's going to be a free safety over the top, in zone, reading and reacting to plays. This guy, at first I was like, no, the Niners don't really need this style of safety. Hell no. They could use this style of safety. A style of safety that great stopping the run and then read and reacts. I mean, he's just perfect in zone, which is what the Niners are going to be playing. So, I mean, he reacts well to crossing routes over the middle, really instinctive safety, has really long arms. He uses his length and his instincts, which is really what you need. Elite instincts, elite length, and very good closing speed. Once he realizes something is happening, he's going to be there. I mean, he reminds me a lot of Talanoa Hufanga, but with better traits, which is why Talanoa Hufanga was a 5th-round pick, and this guy's going to probably be a 1st or early 2nd-round pick. So, yes, the Niners don't theoretically need safety, but if you get this guy, he's going to do to you what Eamon Worry did in Seattle. He's going to be a game changer that genuinely is going to strike fear into every single quarterback on the opposing team. That's how much highly I think of Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. But Niners haven't hosted a visit with him. A quick update on that, though. I mean, Caden Proctor, they've hosted a visit with. I like Chris McClellan, Caleb Lomu, Malachi Lawrence, Max Ionature, Romello Height, Omar Cooper, some of the Jayshon Barham, which I talked about earlier, some of the notable mentions, which speaks to me that they're going to go edge or tackle in the first round, which wouldn't be bad if the right guy is there. But if the right guy isn't there and Emmanuel McNeil-Warren is still on the board, you have to go and get this guy. I would love this pick. This would be the best pick. I would give him an A+. But the analytical guys aren't going to give him an A+ because it doesn't fit a need. I mean, what was missing in the Niners system last year? Jair Brown wasn't quick enough in the Niners system last year. He couldn't plug the run fast enough. he couldn't react fast enough. We need a guy who's going to react, and then they're going to throw a screen, but before you know it, McNeil Warren is just going to be blowing their running back up in the backfield. So, all right, guys, it's been 45 minutes. Library closes soon. I got to get out of here. Top 10 guys. Hopefully you stuck with me till the end. Top 10 guys. Earlier, I talked about some of the strategies the Niners could take, what this means for the Niners. I'll be going live on Thursday. Maybe I'll try to get a group of people together to go live with to react to the Niners' first pick if they don't trade out of it into the second round. For the entertainment point of view, I hope they don't trade out of it so I can watch them pick in the first round in day one, and that I don't have to be sitting there and be like, oh. But I'll probably be going live around pick 20 and then watching the rest of the first round. Guys, go have a good rest of your week. I'll be splitting this up on clips. You'll see me after the draft. I want to get a guest on to react to some of the picks, just so I won't have to do this alone. But I feel like I did my due diligence on a lot of these players. I tell you, to quickly wrap this up, I spent from early February, as soon as really actually before the Super Bowl ended, as soon as the Niners were out of the playoffs, I spent a ton of time. And I think I approached the draft coverage a little bit better this year than I have in previous years. But it's not something that you can get right because it's very extensive and there are a lot of prospects that you have to look at. And then you have to take notes, because one of the things I did was at first I was just looking at as many guys as I could, but then I wasn't really taking notes. And so I'd go back to this player and I'd be like, what did I have on them again? And I did that with a lot of players. So, but then as you round out your draft coverage, you really start to like your guys, which is what I had today, my top 10 guys. All right, guys, have a good rest of your night, Sunday night. Niners draft is in 4 days. We'll see you then.